get into it, and this will be a good one. This is a good follow-up on the conversation we had about the Mississippians and their belief system. Now, if you caught my last video talking about these people, that was about a week ago or so, maybe a little longer than that, and I was just like breaking down, like, you know, who these people were, what they believed, and I talked about more in that one. I talked about their creation. So I already talked about their creation a lot, and I wanted to bookend that by talking about their viewpoint of death. Now, the Mississippians, again, the Mississippian culture spread out geographically. Like, this is a pretty big. I'm just pulling up some facts here that I want to share with you guys. Why I talk about the Mississippian system so much, or why I'm talking about it now, is that they affected, you know, people who were all down the river. The river was the hub for a lot of the civilization, right? This was the hub. Now, this river itself, the Mississippi, feeds a lot of other river systems that all come from this. And the people kind of moved throughout it. So when we're talking about Louisiana, we're talking to Georgia, we're talking into the Floridas, we're talking about not the same belief systems, but very, very similar in how they were constructed. So their constructions are very similar in terms, although you will get variety in stories based on like their geography, their personal experiences, their interpretations. But here's what we do know, right? So when we talk about the Mississippians, and again, we're talking about this wide body of people who were affected. This is what scholars, right? This is what scholars refer to as the Southeastern Ceremonial Complex. And it was a pattern that we saw across the South of how they saw death. We see how they saw the creation of life. And not surprisingly, this is linked heavily to this river, right? And I made some analogies myself that this reminds me, on the surface, feels a lot like what we saw in North Africa with the Kemetic system and their attachment to the Nile. So I see the Mississippi being a direct counter, at least for these people, for the Nile being the source of life for them, and also feeling like the Nile had all those areas that it flooded into, kind of similar to the Fertile Crescent. Like, rivers are always, so talk about the Fertile Crescent, we're talking about the Nile, the Euphrates, the Tigris rivers, the Yellow River would always be important. The Mississippi River is that in terms of like the importance of this river. So this is kind of where we're getting. I wanted to just pull up some information here. Obviously, I got a nice like infograph. I'm going to load this up so you guys can copy this. I usually put this up on my Facebook, but it's a great graph, and it's just a quick reference. Again, sharing knowledge, right? Sharing knowledge is the sincerest form of love, and this is just showing you guys that I love you. I'm gonna make some stuff that you guys can share. I can understand how. I guess I put my logo in there, so you guys give me credit, right? At least give me credit that it's me doing it, right? But I'm gonna share this with you so that you guys can use it, and you see it covers a pretty wide variety of topics. Okay. So what did the Mississippian culture say about death? Well, they had a lot to say. And the first thing is that we have to remember, as I talked about in the first video about them, was this was a three-tiered world, right? So the Mississippians believed in a world where there was the upper world, which was all the sky beings. This is where the thunder spirits were. These were the celestial powers, were all in that world. Then here was the world of it gets popping at. This is us. This is the middle world. This is where the living beings are. This is the human world as we see it. And then below us, and the complement what brings all this stuff together, is the lower world. This is a land a lot of times of the ancestors. This is a water world. This is earth. This is like where like the chaos component of it, the unknown component of it exists, right? So all very important in the structure. And it's important to understand this because this will tell you about the belief systems of these people, right? So the first thing that we notice right here is that there's not really a hell. I don't think I'm interpreting this incorrectly, because we see an upper world. We know what that is. We see a lower world. This is where your ancestors are going to be. This is the land of potential. This is where everything ultimately comes from. Remember, they had to dive into the lower world to pull out the first bits that would become Earth, right? So all the potential for creation is here in this, lower world. So you don't see anywhere, I don't see any representation that is a hellish world that I would remember. Thank you for stopping in, Angie. So I'm just kind of getting to learn this. So I'm taking just a big view. I don't see an interpretation of hell in this world. So the important thing to understand is that you don't vanish from this world, you relocate. So you go from being in this realm to probably the lower realm. Like, that's going to be the important part of it, right? So we'll figure this out. And I think, and I'll wrap this up, but I think this is more of a cyclical cycle. It's a big, worlds like this, river culture specifically, river cultures are very much tied to seasonal cycles, right? There is, manifests itself on Earth. There's always a time of creation and life, and there's always a time of drought and entropy. So they see those in cycles because they are very natural to the world they live in. Just like people in the Nile really built everything off of the river cycles, it's the same type for this culture because it affected everything like your agriculture and you live in every day, right? So very important concepts. The other concept is for you to be dead, when you're dead, what they call you now is an ancestor, right? Like we call our grandpops and all that. We're like, yeah, those are the ancestors. You're going to be one of them ancestors one of those days, right? Maybe not, hopefully not too soon, but eventually you're going to be an ancestor to somebody, right? An aunt, a niece, whatever, your kids, grandkids, friends, kids, whatever. You will be an ancestor, and people will try to contact you and be like, hey, do you think that the Lakers have a chance against OKC? Probably not, right? No, that's my squad. But the ancestors still existed. The ancestors don't go away. You don't go away. I don't see any punishment that's coming down on you either, okay? So the ancestors are part of this active spiritual environment that have all three worlds. They are this, they maintain a connection to the living, right? Because you just have to go to these underworld. Now remember, and I said this before, that in this river system culture, the rivers, particularly the swamps and the bayous, were liminal spaces. These were the places where the living and the dead were able to kind of coexist together, during that time space, because your bayous or your swamps have both death and life, decay and death, and they're also building life at the same time. So that's why these spaces became very, very important. So these burial sites, which we saw, we'll talk about some of the burial mounds here. This is on the last slide all over here. We're going to talk about some of the burial mounds, but they had burial mounds. This is very important to understanding the culture, because you can see what these pyramids or these structures look like. They're very pyramid in shape. Now, pyramids and pyramid building is often going to be influenced by the materials around you, right? So if you're in a desert environment, you have access to limestone and sand. You're going to build with limestone and sand. These people work with earth and clay. So they've talked about the pyramids in North Africa being built underground and then whittled away, right? So there's some contention about how these were built. Regardless, these are elevated burial mounds to get you closer to the next world. This is where these people were kept around. They were part of the community and they continued their presence. So being able to access the ancestors, man, it's right there, man. You can just dial up great-grandpops, great-great-great-grandpops, and be like, look, great-great-great-grandpops, current pops is tripping. You call your grandparents because your mom's tripping. You're like, she's tripping over here. That's what you could do. You had access to your great-great-great-grand ancestors because they were part of this culture. So a lot of times you would see people with ghost spirits behind them, not because they were being haunted, because they were being protected. You can see, like in this image, these people were being protected by the ancestors, right? This is a very, very important component of who these people were. Now, they had elites just like everyone else, right? So elites, your status affected kind of how you were buried, your burial rituals. That's not because your status often went with you. So they did have specific burial practices that they used copper plates and ornaments. Now, copper was the metal they saw associated with the sun. So copper was very much power to these people. Also, if you were near, like the coastal regions, then of course, shells and beads. Similar to what we see in West Africa when we talk about like Yamoja. I think it's Yamoja who's the river goddess, the Yoruba river goddess. It's either Yamoja or Ocean. I believe it's Yamoja, right? Yamoja is the river spirit. And how do you make her happy? Well, you give her shells and beads and things like that. They would also give them weapons and tools because when you went to the afterlife, you had some stuff to do. Again, you're just changing your location. You're in a different space now, right? You cross the limo line, you're in a different space. Something that we would borrow from our North African friends. They used to say, as above, so below. Same concept here. So you still have work to do. And it seems like there were at least some forms of human sacrifices if you were really, really up there in power. I mean, like, man, you're Michael Jackson or somebody like that. There might be some people who would die to be with you, to go into the afterlife with you. That's personal choice that I probably can't condone. However, it went down. Now, when we talk about these burial sites, and we found a lot of these like burial sites, these mounds, these are gateways between the worlds. So these are important places. These were more than just tombs, but obviously that's a part of what these structures did. They were burial, but they were also sacred spaces where we connected to the realms. So they would bring the dead closer to the upper world, and the architecture was a convergent site. So it was trying to pull in all the energy. So if you notice if you ever do any research on any of these burial sites, and I'll start you off with a little bit of stuff. I've been working on a few that I'll be ready to present to you soon, but you see in Moundville, which is in Alabama, there's also a site in Illinois. These were built on spaces that were said to be convergent points for energy. So they weren't just random spaces, right? These were real spaces. So this is an important thing because death for the Mississippian culture, and again, this would go further into the South as well. So we're talking, Louisiana, we're talking Alabama, we're talking even up to Chicago, that life and death were seasonal cycles. You had life, you had death, you had renewal. These are very, very important concepts for a belief system because I want to know if the belief system says you're dead and that's it, or if the belief system says you have some hope of going on in life, right? So this is something fundamental that we understand about the people. One, we understand how they saw creation, where they saw life coming from. These are very important concepts if we want to understand the people, and they were giving us this, right? So they also had agricultural cycles that were tied in this. Plant, they die, they regrow. You plant, you harvest, you regrow. And that worked with their cosmic cycles. We're talking about sun, we're talking about storms, water, and fertility. So what does the individual soul encounter? I don't know yet. But I do know that there's probably some renewal in there. I know that the soul had a birth point. I know that it has a quote unquote death. And then we know that the belief system says that there are points of renewal. These are very cyclical belief systems. And that matters, right? Even the Norse, even like when we talk about Thor and Ragnarok, that was a cyclical system as well. It was a long cycle, right? Went a few thousand years, but it was a cycle that ended in, their birth, their growth, right? The end of their empire, and then the renewal of this new realm. So these are all important things. So do you spawn a new life after you die? Probably not. But do you transition? Do you continue? Are you a participant in this larger cosmic cycle? I would feel pretty certain about saying yes. This is kind of what my beliefs or my understanding of this belief has led me to. Just kind of picking up. And again, on this, all these tribes had different literature that they used to express themselves. So it's not one unified point. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm simply looking at the larger parts of the culture that we can tie together. And those are some of the things that we definitely can tie together, right? And I wanted to pull something out for you here. If I can find, I don't know why I never have stuff ready for you guys. Even though I'm always like, oh man, I'll show them this, right? I never have it ready for you guys. And maybe that changes, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? No one knows. I know that one day I will be going on to the afterlife because we just read about that. Like, come on, what is going on here? Oh, because I'm in the wrong folder. Like, I'm one of those guys. I got a billion folders. So I got all this crazy stuff going on. Let me see if I can find this one here. Okay. I think this is it. Okay. The Mississippians. Okay. I got to build a whole folder for this stuff. Only because I love you guys so much that I want to get this together for you. So I just want to bring up this info right here. Like, this is a little bit more about the sacred mounds, and why they're important, and why we can give some more research to this. We really want to understand. These were massive earth mounds. They were not just burial sites. This was cosmic architecture. And I had mentioned that, this convergence of energy. They elevate the dead physically, symbolizing the closeness to the upper world. They mark sacred ground. So these are points of contact between the worlds. And you can see from the sky what we're looking at here. Some of these mounds supported temples or other elite structures, which enforce the idea of spiritual authority. So the mounds this was your temple sites, was the mound. Again, using the materials that they had, but still expressing the same things culturally. That's the important part. So we're seeing some cultural similarities. So what have we learned about these people in general? Well, the afterlife for them requires getting ready for some stuff. You put in effort. They had preparation for a journey. Grave sites were not random among these people, and the stuff they put in, it wasn't just throwing whatever in there, throwing toys and I saw someone put a GameCube with a Game Boy, threw a Game Boy with his homie in there being buried. Maybe you can find a plug-in and wherever you're going, and you can use your Game Boy. But here they were focused on using actual tools and weapons and things that they felt you would need, because as above, so below. There is continuity with your world. So we see all this coming out in this belief system. I just wanted to throw this out there. The key points is that death is a transition, not an ending. Their shared belief system said that it's a layered universe that we live in, and it manifests inside of us. All these aspects, upper, middle, and lower, all manifest within us as well. Death, again, is not a transition. It is moving to another realm, that you remain spiritually active and you can actually influence the living, that ancestors were involved. They were buried near us. They were buried in mounds. They have ongoing spiritual relationships. You go and holler at your grandpops and he'll give you that information that you need to keep your head straight. That the status kind of carried over. So there were elite burials, not just one, but elite classes were buried with sacred objects, and people were still treated well after death. They still honored death, or respected death, or the cycle. It's just, again, you're rich, you have money, so you get a better plot than I do. Okay, maybe, right? So this is what I wanted to get at you. I wanted to just kind of talk about these people. I'm gonna leave this entire graphic. I'll upload it here to the channel. I think I can do it in the community, but I'll put it on my social media page, my Facebook page. So if you ever want to grab this, you think it might be some useful tool. If you're FBA, you're talking about foundational Americans, I think this is something that kind of puts some stats together for us, and it's been a helpful use for me, just sharing this information. And remember, sharing is caring, right? So that's what I'm doing, showing you guys that I love you guys by caring so much. So I'm going to dip off of this. I got another topic that I want to come back at. It has nothing to do with this, so I'm going to have these be two separate feeds, because the next one I'm just going to get a little weird and crazy, but it'll be fun. But thank you for stopping in. As always, as you hit like the channel, give me your thoughts on the